The chamber of the Galactic Council glittered with opulence, its vaulted ceilings adorned with holographic constellations and symbols of interstellar power. Representatives of countless advanced civilizations filled the amphitheater, their forms as varied as the stars themselves, tall, sinewy beings of living crystal, gaseous entities swirling in containment suits, and reptilian warriors clad in ceremonial armor. At the head of the chamber, seated upon a towering dais, was Supreme Chancellor Varric, his golden carapace gleaming under the artificial light. His multifaceted eyes glinted with disdain as he regarded the lone figure standing at the center of the room. Commander Alec Graves stood resolute, his uniform immaculate despite the long journey from Earth. His sharp features bore the weariness of a man who had fought more battles than he cared to count. The weight of Earth's survival rested heavily on his shoulders, but he refused to let it bow him. "Esteemed counselors," Graves began, his voice carrying a measured authority, "I come before you not as a representative of Earth alone, but as a voice for survival. The Girthak swarm has ravaged system after system, leaving only death in their wake. They have turned their sights to my home. I ask not for charity, but for solidarity. Lend us the means to defend ourselves, and together we can repel this threat." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber, echoing off the crystalline walls. Chancellor Varric raised a segmented arm, silencing the assembly with a casual gesture. His voice, smooth and condescending, resonated across the hall. "Commander Graves," Varric said, leaning forward, "your planet's bravery is commendable. But let us be honest. What could Earth possibly contribute to a galactic defense effort? You are a species barely out of your cradle, wielding primitive tools on a world that can hardly sustain its own population." The assembly murmured in agreement, their voices tinged with scorn. Graves remained composed, though his clenched fist betrayed his frustration. "With respect, Chancellor," Graves replied, his tone firm, "Earth has faced countless challenges in its history. Wars, plagues, disasters. We have endured, adapted, and risen stronger each time. The Girthak are formidable, but they are not invincible. Give us the weapons, and we will prove it." Varric chuckled, a grating sound that made Graves' jaw tighten. "Weapons? What weapons? Sticks and stones? Your planet's most notable accomplishment is its array of quaint creatures. Do you expect to unleash your wolves and bears against an intergalactic hive mind?" The chamber erupted into laughter again, some counselors mimicking animalistic growls and howls. Graves' face remained impassive, but his piercing gaze locked onto Varric. "Mock us if you must," Graves said coldly, "but Earth is not without its surprises." Varric waved dismissively. "Enough of this farce. Earth is denied assistance. The Council's resources are better spent on planets that offer value. Guards, escort Commander Graves back to his ship." Two towering enforcers approached, their metallic forms bristling with energy weapons. Graves stepped aside, straightened his uniform, and strode out of the chamber with his head held high. As the Council returned to its deliberations, a few members cast wary glances at the departing human. One, a scaled diplomat from the Slekhar Confederacy, leaned toward his neighbor and whispered, "It is unwise to underestimate creatures born on a world of such chaos. Their resilience is—" he hesitated, searching for the word. "Concerning." Back on Earth, Graves descended from his shuttle onto a rain-slicked tarmac, greeted by the grim faces of his command team. Gregor Thorne, his second-in-command, a grizzled veteran with an unyielding glare, stepped forward. "I take it they laughed in your face," Thorne growled, crossing his arms. Graves nodded, his expression hardened. "They see us as ants before giants. They won't lift a finger to help." Thorne spat onto the ground, his contempt for the Council palpable. "Figures. They're too busy sitting on their thrones to care about the rest of us." "What now?" Graves glanced toward the horizon, where storm clouds gathered over the distant mountains. "We do what humans have always done. We fight with what we have. And if that's not enough," his voice trailed off, a shadow crossing his features, "what are you thinking, Alec?" Thorn asked, his tone edged with unease. Graves turned to his old friend, his eyes resolute. Project Ragnarok. Thorn's face darkened, his usual bravado faltering. You can't be serious. Those things aren't weapons. They're disasters waiting to happen. You release them, and we might not survive the aftermath. Graves placed a hand on Thorn's shoulder. I know the risks, Gregor, but the Girthak won't stop until Earth is ash. We either take the gamble or accept extinction. I'd rather unleash the storm than wait to be swept away by it. Thorn studied his commander for a long moment before giving a reluctant nod. All right, but if we do this, we do it right. No half measures. Graves allowed himself a grim smile. Agreed. Assemble the team. We move at dawn. Far above, the Girthak swarm loomed, their organic vessels pulsing with eerie bioluminescence. Aboard the command ship, the swarm's hive sovereign reviewed Earth's defenses with detached curiosity. Primitive, the sovereign hissed, its thoughts rippling through the hive mind. This world will fall swiftly. Harvest every resource. Leave nothing behind. But as the swarm prepared to descend, the sovereign's attention was drawn to a faint, ancient signal emanating from Earth's polar regions. It dismissed the anomaly as irrelevant, unaware that humanity's last hope had begun to stir. The monsters were waking. The icy expanse of the Arctic stretched endlessly before Commander Alec Graves and his team, the cold wind biting through their insulated suits. The towering steel doors of Facility Omega stood before them, half buried in snow and frost. Rusted and weather-worn, the entrance betrayed little of the horrors hidden within. Gregor Thorn adjusted his weapon sling and shot Graves a wary glance. You sure about this, Alec? Once those things are out, there's no putting them back in. Graves stared at the imposing doors, his breath forming plumes in the frigid air. We don't have a choice. If we don't use every weapon at our disposal, the Girthak will wipe us out. Whatever happens next, that's a problem for survivors. A technician stepped forward, setting a device against the frozen console by the entrance. Sparks flew as the override code activated the ancient mechanisms. Slowly, with an agonizing groan, the doors began to part, revealing a cavernous space beyond. Inside, the facility was a testament to human ingenuity and desperation. Massive containment units lined the walls, each housing a creature unlike anything the outside world had ever seen. Thick, reinforced glass separated humanity from the monsters within, glowing faintly with containment fields. Project Ragnarok, Thorn muttered, his voice low. I always thought it was a myth. It's real. Graves replied grimly, and it's the only thing that will make the Girthak regret coming here. The first containment pod hissed open, releasing a rush of vapor that clouded the room. From within, a colossal figure stirred. Kalos, a towering reptilian beast with obsidian scales that shimmered with faint blue energy. Its eyes, luminous and predatory, scanned its surroundings as it let out a deep, guttural roar that shook the walls. Graves and his team stood frozen, awe and fear mixing in equal measure. That thing looks like it could eat a tank, Thorn muttered, his hand gripping his weapon tightly. It probably can, Graves said, and it'll need to if we want to survive. Kalos took a lumbering step forward, the ground trembling under its weight. The sonic emitters Graves had ordered installed activated, projecting a low-frequency hum that calmed the beast. It stopped, its gaze shifting toward the exit, as if sensing the battle that awaited. As the team moved deeper into the facility, more pods were activated. Infernum, a creature of molten fury, emerged from its chamber beneath the geothermal veins of Yellowstone. Its glowing, magma-coated skin radiated intense heat, and every step it took left charred impressions on the floor. Dreadmaw, a leviathan of the deep, slithered from its aquatic containment pod. Its bioluminescent patterns pulsed ominously as it let out an echoing roar, its many tentacle-like limbs writhing in agitation. Spectrus, the most mysterious of the monsters, was little more than a silhouette in the dim light. Its amorphous, Shadow-like form melted into the darkness, only its piercing crimson eyes betraying its presence. Graves felt the weight of his decision bear down on him as each creature awakened. These were no ordinary weapons. They were forces of nature, beings that humanity could barely control. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Girthak swarm began their assault. Organic vessels descended through Earth's atmosphere, their chitinous hulls splitting open to release swarms of bioweapon-laden drones. Cities across the globe fell into chaos as Earth's conventional military defenses proved futile against the swarm's adaptability. Graves watched the devastation unfold on the command center's monitors. Fires raged across major cities, and the swarm's forces spread like locusts, consuming everything in their path. "It's now or never," he said, turning to his team. "Activate the deployment sequence. Release the monsters." In the Arctic, massive gates opened to the outside world, and Kalos took its first thunderous step onto frozen ground. Its roar echoed across the tundra, a primal challenge to the invaders. Above, Girthak ships detected the energy signature and redirected their forces to intercept. Kalos leaped with terrifying agility for its size, swiping at a Girthak dropship with its massive claws. The ship exploded on impact, its organic hull disintegrating into flaming shards. Elsewhere, Infernum erupted from the ground in North America, its molten form emerging from Yellowstone's caldera. Streams of lava followed in its wake, incinerating Girthak, forces attempting to encircle it. The creature's roar was a mixture of fury and triumph as it unleashed a molten torrent, obliterating an entire swarm of alien drones. In the Pacific, Dreadmaw rose from the ocean depths, its bioluminescent patterns glowing brightly as it slammed into the underside of a Girthak carrier ship. Tentacles wrapped around the vessel, crushing it before dragging it into the dark abyss. Spectress, meanwhile, appeared in the shadows of a besieged New York City. Moving with supernatural speed, it attacked Girthak forces with razor-sharp precision. For every enemy it struck down, it seemed to grow stronger, feeding off the fear and chaos it created. Back at the command center, Thorne watched the reports coming in. "It's working," he said, a note of disbelief in his voice. "Those things are tearing through the swarm." Graves nodded but kept his expression guarded. "For now. The question is whether we can keep them focused. If they turn on us," he let the sentence hang, the weight of the unspoken threat suffocating. As the battle raged, something unexpected occurred. The monsters, initially acting independently, began to show signs of coordination. Kalos roared, and Infernum responded with a blast of molten fire aimed at an approaching Girthak force. Dreadmaw surfaced near Spectress, shielding the shadowy entity from a barrage of bioweapon projectiles. Graves stared at the footage, his brow furrowing. "They're working together," he said quietly. Thorne frowned. "How's that possible? They've been in stasis for decades. They shouldn't even be aware of each other. Maybe they were never as mindless as we thought," Graves said, his voice tinged with unease. As the section concluded, the monsters had begun to turn the tide of the battle. The Girthak forces, so confident in their superiority, now found themselves outmatched by Earth's unleashed titans. But the question lingered. What would humanity do if the monsters refused to return to their cages? The Galactic Council chamber was a vision of grandeur, its polished obsidian walls gleaming under the cold light of 1,000 crystalline orbs. Delegates from countless star systems sat in tiers that rose like an amphitheater, their forms ranging from gaseous entities suspended in containment fields to insectoid creatures chittering through translation devices. At the center stood High Arbiter Kaler, his serpentine form coiled upon a dais of shimmering alloy. Kaler's voice, resonant and imperious, filled the chamber. The invasion of Earth was to be a demonstration of our supremacy, a message to all who would challenge our dominion. Yet, I hear reports of failure, of catastrophe. What is the meaning of this? A holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the chamber. It displayed footage from Earth. Kalos the Titan roaring as it crushed a Girthak ship, Infernum unleashing rivers of lava, and Dreadmaw dragging alien carriers into the ocean's depths. The council watched in stunned silence as Spectrus dissolved into shadows, reappearing behind a Girthak commander and obliterating him with a single strike. A murmur spread through the chamber, an unsettling undercurrent of fear and disbelief. One of the delegates, a crystalline entity known as Vorthrek, shattered the silence. This cannot be possible. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak. The Girthak assured us of victory, rumbled another delegate, his gelatinous form quivering with agitation. Kaler's coils tightened, his golden eyes narrowing. The Girthak swarm was our most advanced biological force. If they were defeated, then we must reevaluate our understanding of the species. Tell me, General Oryx, what do you know of these creatures? General Oryx, a hulking saurian with a scarred snout, stepped forward. He hesitated before speaking, his voice low and gravelly. The humans call them monsters, weapons created long ago in secret. They've unleashed them now, and we have no countermeasure. The swarm was annihilated. The murmurs grew louder, rising to a cacophony of panic. Kaler slammed his tail against the dais, the resounding crack silencing the chamber. "Enough," he roared. "Monsters or not, they are still confined to one planet. We have the resources of an entire galaxy at our disposal. We will not be cowed by these creatures." As the council deliberated, Earth was far from quiet. Graves stood on a snow-covered ridge, the distant glow of fires illuminating the horizon. Kalos towered nearby, its glowing blue eyes scanning the skies for signs of more invaders. Infernum's molten form moved through the landscape like a living volcano, while Dreadmaw's bioluminescent patterns shimmered faintly from an ocean trench. Spectrus, ever elusive, was nowhere to be seen but could be felt, a dark presence lurking at the edge of perception. Thorn approached, his expression grim. "We received intercepted transmissions. The Galactic Council isn't backing down. They're regrouping, preparing a second wave." Graves nodded, his jaw tightening. "Let them come. We're ready. Thorn raised an eyebrow, gesturing toward the monsters. "You really think they're on our side?" Graves glanced at Kalos, which seemed to regard him with an almost intelligent curiosity. "They're not on anyone's side," he admitted. "But for now, their survival and ours are aligned. Let's keep it that way." In orbit above Earth, the galactic fleet began to materialize. Massive warships, shimmering with alien technology, formed an impenetrable blockade. Planetary assault carriers bristled with weapons, their energy cannons aimed directly at Earth. The Council's chosen executioner, a cybernetic colossus known as Zynar, led the fleet. Designed as the ultimate weapon, Zynar's artificial intelligence had been programmed to neutralize even the most chaotic threats. As Zynar's fleet approached the atmosphere, the monster stirred. Kalos roared, its cry echoing across the tundra. Infernum erupted in a plume of molten fury, while Dreadmaw's tentacles surfaced from the ocean, their bioluminescent patterns pulsating in defiance. Spectrus emerged from the shadows, its form shifting as it melded into the darkness, preparing for battle. From the ground, Graves watched as the monsters moved with eerie synchronization. "They know what's coming," he muttered. Thorn crossed his arms, his voice laced with skepticism. "And they're not running. That's what scares me." The first barrage from the galactic fleet lit up the sky, a rain of plasma and energy beams descending toward the surface. Kalos intercepted a massive projectile mid-flight, shattering it with a single swipe of its claw. Infernum retaliated with streams of molten fire that arced into the atmosphere, striking several warships and sending them plummeting to Earth. Dreadmaw rose from the ocean like a leviathan of legend, its tentacles latching onto the hulls of smaller vessels and crushing them effortlessly. Spectrus infiltrated the fleet, slipping through their defenses and tearing through command centers with surgical precision. Zynar descended from the flagship, its massive form radiating cold efficiency. The cybernetic colossus landed with a deafening crash, its crimson optics scanning for threats. It locked onto Kalos and advanced, each step shaking the ground. The clash between Kalos and Xynar was a battle of titans. The earth trembled as the two collided. Kalos' raw strength pitted against Xynar's technological precision. Infernum joined the fray, unleashing streams of molten fury that forced Xynar to recalibrate its defenses. Graves and Thorn watched from a secure bunker, the ground quaking beneath them. If they take Xynar down, the Council might think twice before sending more troops, Thorn said. Graves shook his head. The Council doesn't think twice. They only think about control. But this will make them afraid. On the Galactic Council's central broadcast, the devastation was displayed for all to see. Delegates watched in horror as their mighty fleet was dismantled. Kaler's expression shifted from anger to disbelief as Xynar fell, its massive form crushed beneath Kalos' relentless assault. Vorthrek spoke, his crystalline form flickering with panic. We cannot face this threat. Earth is a death world, its creatures beyond anything we can comprehend. To persist would be madness. Kaler remained silent, his coils tightening. For the first time in his long tenure, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates argued over their next course of action. Some called for immediate withdrawal, while others demanded more resources to subjugate Earth. Kaler finally raised a clawed hand, silencing the assembly. "This is not over," he said, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. "We will return. We must." But deep down, Kaler knew that the Galactic Council's reign was no longer certain. Earth had awakened its monsters, and the galaxy would never be the same.